So how you doing today? I know we're about 10 days out.
Yeah, 9 days out,
Oh,
single
nice.
digits. Yeah, it's
It's
getting
coming.
crazy.
It's coming down to it. So
Yeah,
I actually wanted to share everybody your page here.
perfect.
Hold on, make sure it's not in the chats. Make sure here. All right. So everybody, this is Jordan Brannon. You can follow her at jbrandon_IFBB Pro. You're a 4-time Olympian, if I'm correct.
Yes, this year will be 4 times, and we're already qualified for this.
I know. I mean, I've been following since was it Junior USA's you turned pro?
Yes, that's
That
correct.
was the same. That was the same show. My good friend Skylar, who won the overall in 2017, she got her pro card in. I
It's
don't
a
know if you're familiar with her. Skylar Lanier.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. She was telling me, like, I was telling her, like, almost a lot of people that came out of that Junior USA's, you never know. I would look at who's in that lineup and go, okay, maybe not won the overall. Whoever was second to fourth, they were going to be something great. And you were one of those. You were second or third in the overall on that one.
Second to Alice.
Oh,
Alice
yeah, that was when she won. I remember that.
Yeah.
So
It's so cool to like see that in retrospect now, and being teammates and whatnot. It's so cool. So
I was gonna say, like, Jamie and I think everybody that's on Fit Body Fusion, they're actually all phenomenal athletes, and Jamie's an amazing coach. I mean, the work that she puts into, like, do the tape on the hotel floor and then get the lighting and set up, doing that very early, that's commitment.
it is
I don't
like
know.
next level. It is like a little stage when you walk into Jamie and Greg's room. It's absolutely incredible. The stage lights, the tape on the floor, like they make it such an experience for us. And Greg is a photographer as well, so we get like the behind the scenes. It really truly is something special.
So I have you on because I actually have a lot of questions for you. So one thing I was really like interesting about that, I heard about you saying this before, but you were in physical therapy before. Like, you were trying to get into that. You were getting into that field because of your family, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. My aunt is a physical therapist out in Tampa, and she owns multiple clinics out there. And I started working for her when I was 13. And, I wanted to be a physical therapist. And at the time I was accepted. I was in, going to PT school. I had about 4 months until, I was heading into that program. And last minute, I, did a Hail Mary, and I'm like, I don't think that's what I want to do. I think I want to try this whole fitness thing and open a gym, and took the leap of faith. Drew thought I was absolutely insane, but he supported me every step of the way. My aunt at the time was like, are you serious? Are you kidding me? But, my family ended up supporting me in a lot of ways. And it's cool to kind of see how everything, came to fruition. And obviously they're super proud now, but it was a very tough call at the time, for something that I truly believed in for, 10 years. And then all of a sudden I was like, all right, this is not what I want to do anymore. A lot of people were like, are you sure? Is this an emotional decision? But honestly, I have no regrets. It was the best thing I ever did for myself.
Yeah. When I was like hearing how you talk, I was just like, man, you could have been. Where'd you apply to? Like, I'm thinking you would have gone to Leonard Miller, University of Miami. I was like, you realize how good of ties you would have had there? It's private school, 10th best school in the country. I went to VCU. It's 20th in the country.
Yeah.
And it's harder to get into physical therapy school than it is to med school, if you think about it. Because back then it used to be getting a bachelor's and a master's degree. And then 2015, they made it where it's like 3-year doctorate.
Correct.
So what year did you graduate? South Florida, right?
Yeah. God, people always ask me this all the time. I get confused. I think 2013 or 2014, we graduated from the exercise phys program. And then I was going to the USF doctorate program. That was the one I was accepted into. And then I was still waiting to hear from St. Augustine, which is like one of the best schools for doctor of physical therapy. And that's where my aunt went to. So obviously she had like a letter of recommendation for me. And, but yeah, it didn't end up out working that way. But again, everybody thought I was crazy when I pulled the acceptance. They were like, are you kidding? It was so hard to get into at the time. Literally in our exercise science program, we started with 36 students, and more than half of them were going to physical therapy after that. So when I was like, hey, I'm not doing this, they were like, mind blown. It's actually really funny. I had one of my my cohort friends from the exercise science program. We chatted this week earlier just to catch up, and she was like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long. Like, look how much you've done. I'm so proud of you. So it is really kind of cool to see like the different avenues and places that we.
Yeah. I always say maybe the best thing that did not happen is the best thing that did happen, because it's what made you are today. And you've obviously grown your business. You're a full-time coach, and I even told you this, I feel like when you're less stressed, already qualified, you can focus on coaching and doing that and growing your business more. So that's
Absolutely.
something I would say that is a win. But man, I was like, you could have gone to like the way she talks, you could have gone to one of the best schools in the country. Like I keep thinking, and I'm not gonna keep reminiscing on that. I'm just like, but then you're like, did I really want to do that for like 10, 20, 30 years from now? Because you
Yeah.
want to do something for the long run.
Absolutely. And at the climate of our country at that time, things were changing so much with health insurance and whatnot. And I was seeing the struggles that my aunt was having. And, my aunt's a grinder. Like she's one of the reasons why I know how to work. And I knew that she would always make it, but I didn't think I was truly passionate about the work enough through physical therapy that I knew that I would have so many challenges. And you're right, with this, avenue of coaching, I get the ability to help people and create my own schedule, and I get to travel and, do all these things. And obviously competing was not a thought at the time when I was, making this decision, but, God had bigger plans for me. Maybe competing was, the bigger plan, or, what I'm going to do after competing. So it's really cool to, think about that decision and how it impacted my life. And then, when I think about my life, in another 2 years, I'll think about where I am now, and, just the turnover of my life and kind of how I keep progressing. It's exciting. And, I'm a big fan of the growth mindset and just continue to show up and get 1% better every day, whatever that takes me. Life's too short and you got to be happy. And, I want to be able to work, but not feel like it's work, and
Yeah.
truly enjoy what I'm doing. So I really do think that I made the best,
When you're
at the
truly
time.
passionate about something and it doesn't become a job. And
Absolutely.
one thing I was going to say about, and this was, I have a couple times, you love to train.
Love to train.
You're not just like, you know, there are people who get into this industry like I do this because I want to be a pro, because it's like always that, because I do it because I get views, I get sponsorships, I get this. You do it because you love to do it. And it shows with you and Drew, and like Drew's pushing and you're like, please. he
He's
always
hard on
he's
me.
put yeah, he wants the best
Hard.
out of you. He wants the
He does.
best out of you. And I can
Yeah,
tell.
he
You
does.
put in the work, and you're dedicated to it and you enjoy it.
Yeah. And like anything, like I'm truly believe in life, like why do anything if you're not going to do it at 100%? Like I hate like a checkbox mentality, if you will. And don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, I'm human. I get into those moments as well. Drew's definitely my stabilizer when, that happens. He's like, hey, like, something's off. You're kind of doing that checkbox work, and that to me too is a healthy marriage, one that you could be real and honest and vulnerable with. I definitely wouldn't be where I am without him, and then just having him and Jamie, in my back pocket is incredible. When Drew and I found this sport, I don't think a lot of people realize, like, we knew nothing about bodybuilding, like nothing. We watched our first show together. Our first coach introduced us to the sport. Like Drew and I learned from the beginning about bodybuilding, about each federation, what its criteria was. And, now, we're trying to make the sport better. We're trying to, teach people how to train, and, the divisions and the criteria keeps changing. It's an evolution of sport, which is why it's so interesting to Drew and I. We love to learn, we love continuing education. So it's cool. It's cool to be able to do this with him. Drew and I have always been a team since day one. Business partners, hobbies together, live together, play together. It has its challenges, of course, but truly, like where he lacks, I fill, and vice versa. So it really is such a cool power.
So as an exercise science major, we're the only ones who can be getting a certified strength and conditioning specialist. Do you or Drew have that, or was that something you didn't feel like going? Because I felt like if I was going to go get that, I was going to be a college coach, and I didn't think I would be able to do it at the level. If I had it, would be cool to have that accolade with me. But in a world of influencers and fitness gurus, you want to say, there's always that science-based lifting, and then there's program design. When how to, like, when you have a new client, for instance, they will kind of hear that person like, what's that new thing? What's that nuance? What's this one? And it's like, then they come to a point where like, how do I do a bicep curl again? So how do you differentiate with your clients when they hear something and then you teach them something? How do you differentiate? Because they're always going to say, is it like necessary to add this new exercise in? Because they're always looking for that new thing, that one new thing that can maybe help them when may not be effective.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and something that we deal with a lot right now. There's so much information out there these days, even more than when I started in the sport just a few years ago in 2019. And then you talk to someone like Sean, who's my podcast co-host, who started in
Yeah.
this, 10, 15 years ago. There was no information back then. So I think at this point, there's just so much information out there. And especially for newer athletes, it's extremely confusing. So to answer your first question, I do not have my CCTS, Drew does, but I do have my certified personal training through NSCA. But when I get a new client, and especially when they're talking about the things that they're seeing on social media, it just, to your point, it really starts with learning the basic movement patterns, a
Yeah.
squat, a hinge, a shoulder press, just starting with the basics and then gauging from there, intensity, form, and then you can add in, intensifiers and things like that. I think people get too caught up in following their favorite influencers or perhaps even their favorite bikini pros that are posting things on social media. And I know we hear this all the time, but you can't believe what you see all the time on
Yeah.
social media. I know friends that are IFBB pros myself, and, they post a video up of a exercise that they're doing, and they tell me I don't really do that in my program. It's for content. Or they get confused because they say their, favorite bikini pro doing, 4 sets of 12 to 15. And, when you're an amateur, you have to, lift really, really heavy to put on that muscle. And it's like, well, why are they lifting so light? Well, they already have the amount of muscle that they need for that criteria. So for my newer athletes, it's all about the basics, starting from the beginning, starting from the ground up. Like, you can't go from not learning a bicep curl to doing some banded, just crazy thing and expect for them to be able to grow and do it proficiently. So with all of my new athletes, I'll give them the training program based on their intake form and what they look like. And the first thing that we do is start with training footage from the get-go. This is something that I'm not seeing a lot of coaches do right now because it does take a lot of time. And to be honest, it can be a little frustrating. They
Yeah.
get somebody that really doesn't know how to train, and there's only so much that we could do through a computer. So training footage has been extremely beneficial, even for myself too. Obviously I'm sending training footage to Drew, and then he gives me updates, and I continue to use my own training footage to keep an eye on my form. But honestly, just start with the basics. Like, don't make it complicated. Boring works, and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is that they want the newest and greatest or this new feeling, and they're chasing almost this high. But I've made, a good amount of improvements within the last year. And honestly, I brought it back to the basics and mastering the basics and the boring and the redundancy. And when you talk to like your favorite bodybuilders are doing well in this sport, that's what they'll tell you. They're doing the same thing all the time and just being super intentional and consistent with it.
Yeah. So my next question is, with you having to coach your own athletes and you at the same time, has that ever happened to you where you having your NPC athletes and then you're in a pro show at the same time? And how do you balance that out?
It has only happened one time because so my kind of rule of thumb is if my athletes are competing, I do not. The one time that it happened, I was thrown into the show last second, and I did have a conversation with my athlete 5 days ahead of time. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing the show. I know you're already doing it. What do you think? And her and I had a great conversation, and she was totally good with it. So typically I do not like to do that, but sometimes it does happen. If my athlete is going to be competing on the same weekend as me, and I'm saying that now because I do have an athlete that's going to be competing on the same weekend as me this year, and her and I have already talked about it, but her and I have been working together a really long time. We have a good flow. We're established. Obviously, most of the times Drew's with me. So my athletes 8 days out from their show start checking in with me every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And at that point, I'll bring Drew in on those messages so that he's seeing the back and forth and kind of what we're doing and in that conversation of kind of where that athlete's at. And then he's already up to speed by the time that we get to that show on Thursday or Friday. So most of the time we don't want this to happen. It has to be a very specific athlete that I feel really, really confident about. Definitely not a new athlete or, someone that I haven't prepped yet or had experience with yet. But honestly, the girls that I do it with, they love it. Like, they love being able to be backstage together. We're in our bikinis together. So the couple times it's happened, it's been awesome. But typically I would not do that. I like to be there running around crazy, being the stage mom and making sure that my girls are taken care of. That's my number one.
So when you started, I remembered, you were saying that you felt like, I don't know what it was, but you said, yeah, I don't have the best like wow physique. And when I see you, I look at a physique that's like, like this looks attainable, like people can try to look like. What is it for you? And I put that in the question box for you with behind the bikini. I don't know if you saw it, but it's like, do
We're
you think
answering
for you,
now.
do you
Yeah.
feel that I'm probably gonna watch it and see it, but do you feel that for you it's genetics or just lack of experience?
That's a great question. Maybe a little bit of both. I think that when I said that, my glutes were definitely not in the spot density wise that they are today, and I know I've said that before. Um, are you referring to the video that just came out recently in my YouTube where I said that I don't think I could win in Olympia with my genetics, or when I said years ago that I didn't feel like I had a wow?
I felt like it was a couple years ago we said you didn't have a wow factor to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was saying that at the time, it really just was like my glutes. Like I have been told by judges time and time again, like you are perfect for bikini, the perfect attainable bikini. Girls love your physique because they feel like it's super attainable, but we just need more glutes on you. And I knew that. And then, obviously you could see here too, like I have to get so lean on my front in order to show my tie-ins. I have really short, stubby tie-ins. And up until this point, it's been very, very hard to get them to show without getting so conditioned and stage lean. This year, I'm bringing a completely different package to the Arnold. And so I say this, prematurely. I don't know what I'm going to think of my physique this year. I know that it's completely improved. Like my glutes and my tie-ins are the dense and widest they've ever been. So I do think that I'm going to start kind of changing, that view of myself. And then with the confidence factor, just with posing and presentation, these top Olympians, they come out, they make it look effortless. My posing has come in a long, long way. That's one of the things, I'm checking in with Jamie every 3 days right now in person. And she's like, gosh, your posing has just come such a long way. And it's an art, it's a practice. So, at the top level at the Olympia, the Arnold too, like everybody shows up is freaking amazing. Like you have to be on point. There's no room for error. So I'm just trying to fill in those gaps of trying to bring my best posing package, physique, conditioning, fullness, like it all has to be there. And I just don't really feel like I've seen my true potential yet.
Yeah, because I was telling Sean, I remember saying this, like, well, girls up and coming, they're, you look at, and I'm guilty of saying this. I know this is, if someone sees this, they're going to get so mad at me saying this, but I said, well, you don't look at Issa Pacini like that is attainable. That's rare genetics to look like that with that front pose in her waist. And that, but I was like, if girls saw you or, Ariana, they would go, hey, I like that. I want to look like that. They look at something that they can relate to. And I really believe you do have that look that many women want to look like. And they would go, hey, it's not too, what's the word? You're not freaky. You're not like, they're not spooked. They're like, I can't do that. They would get discouraged, like to look at like an Issa, an Ashley, or a Lorelei. A lot of people say you have an Ashley look, but I was like, the way that you train and the way Ashley trains, totally different. Yeah. You're talking about a Division I track athlete going against Ohio State, Michigan, Big Ten schools. And then I don't believe you came from did you come from a sports background at all?
No, I tried sports and nothing really made sense to me until I found the weight room. Yeah. So the weight room is kind of where
totally different.
It's totally different. It's totally different than team sports and aerobic sports and things like that, and a lot of girls came to the sport, post track or post gymnastics or these, collegiate athletes. I was just, showing up in the weight room, doing the best I can and slowly learning as I went. I learned a lot in the exercise science program. That's when really things started clicking for me about like what I want to look like, what I'm trying to train like. That's where I met my first coach as well. But yeah, I think it's human nature that you are attracted to the things that you feel like you could look like or get yourself. So I'm honored that, I do get that a lot, that people are like, you're attainable. Like, that's why I love your physique. I feel like I could look like that. Or, and, someone like Issa, like freaking amazing physique. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. But, a lot of girls know that they can't have a super, super tight waistline like that. Like I always look at Issa and I'm like, where are your organs? Like it's insane. But I also love that. That's my favorite part of the sport is, at the Olympia level, all of these different bodies, that's the hardest part about bikini is there's a criteria, but there's so many different women with different shapes. And it's really cool to see the way that we all show up and kind of, position ourselves. That's kind of the exciting part.
Now I wanted to get on here because I don't want to give you like a whole speech, but you have to believe that you can be in that top 10. You can believe in yourself. But I feel like when you put so much pressure and anxiety on yourself to like do well or to perform well? I think it was your first Olympia. You said you were sick and then that all happened. And I was like, if she just, and you're doing so many shows back to back, because I felt like you had this high where like you knew you can qualify, you knew you can get there. But then you go into 23 and you kind of had doubts where you felt like you couldn't qualify. And then you decided one more with Tahoe. Could you tell me about what happened with that?
Yeah. Wow, that's it. You have a good memory, John. Yeah, so like my first Olympia, obviously, like I showed up, had zero expectation, just happy to be there. Woke up super sick with COVID that year, and then the next year, you know, we're getting ready to prep, and I just kept telling myself in the back of my mind, like maybe that was all a fluke. Like maybe I'm never going to get qualified again. Like, am I ever going to be able to go to the Olympia again? And I started with that mindset. And going into, you know, my season is when Greg, Jamie's husband, introduced the book, The Champion's Mindset, to me. And I started reading that book going into Tahoe. I wasn't even finished with it, but by the time we went into Tahoe. So before Tahoe, Jamie brought me out to her house because Drew called her about a week before the show and was like, Jay's losing her mind. Like, she's not in a good spot mentally. Like, I need to get her back on track. Like, we just need to come see you. So we came out to Scottsdale, and I was staying with Jamie the week before Tahoe. And, you know, I was there every single day. She was checking in with me every morning, looking after me. I was reading the book at the time. And basically, you know, we showed up to Tahoe, and she goes, I just need you to throw any expectations out of the window and go have fun. And I was like, okay. And there's a photo of me Friday night before the show because I wasn't dropping weight and we couldn't see my tie-ins because they were still short and stubby at the time. So when I checked in with her Friday night before the show, I had beautiful tie-ins for me at the time. And she was like, you look amazing. Like, you're on. And I literally dropped to the floor. And there's a photo of me on my knees, like, thank God, like I did it. Like, I prepped, I peaked, like, we're here. And that's the thing too about Jamie that I've learned for myself as well as a coach. And I treat my athletes this way too. Like, I never say something unless I mean it. So like when Jamie tells me you're on, you look great, I know we're on. And then I know when I walk into the room before a show, she's like, it's good. I'm like, okay, it's not our best, you know, but I appreciate that, like knowing where I'm at. And, you know, every time Jamie has said you're on, I was on, and I ended up having a really good show. So I really appreciate that about her. You know, she's so good at keeping me physically where I need to be, but also mentally where I need to be. And I think after Tahoe, I really started, you know, to start to trust myself and to get out of that negative mind space of this wasn't a fluke. You did earn this. You're going to keep earning it as long as you continue to show up and work. And I think that's normal too as a human being. You know, I think that's our way of protecting ourselves, is kind of telling ourselves that story of, well, if this doesn't happen, it's okay. Or if it doesn't happen, like I'm just going to prepare myself. But that goes back to the book and the champion mindset of why not me? And that's what I tell myself when I get those doubts, you know, why not me? And it's really carried me super far into this season. This is the best mindset I've ever had going into any season. And I truly believe in myself, and truly, no matter what happens, I'm really just happy that I can keep showing up, that I'm healthy. And that's all I can do at the end of the day is keep showing up and showing my.
And that's great to I know that you're in that better mindset now, because I feel like it's not just you know, physically, it's more on the mental side more than anything. So I think another thing was because you started competing very late, but you're in a better position more mentally versus if you were early 20s, like 20, 23 years old, it's much more different. So you started competing at what age and how old are you now?
29. Yep.
I'm like you, I'm started late, but I feel like now you're more mature and you're growing into that physique where you're in that stride now. So I think right now you're in a great position, even heading into this Arnold. So going about this, and I know this has been talked about. I hope you saw the question. I hope it's not too complicated for you and Sean. And Sean is awesome. Sometimes I don't always agree with her, but I always like say like, okay, let's find like, I don't always have to agree with you. Sometimes I find a common ground. Like we have a difference of opinion, but here's one question I have to ask is, why do you think now more than ever coaches are at the front of an athlete's success? So like, for instance, you know, you're the athlete, you can decide what shows you want to do or not. And then there's some coaches will say, no, you're not going to do this show. You're going to do this one. I don't want you to be at this one because of this and that. Does it because they don't want their reputation? They don't want them to look bad if their athletes don't perform well? What do you think it is, in
I
your
think there's
opinion?
I think there's a lot that has to go into that, from a coach's perspective, especially at a top level, depending on the amount of pros that you have under your schedule, there's a lot of things that you have to think about, especially at the beginning of the year. Obviously, as a top coach, you want to get all of your athletes qualified for the Olympia. It does have to be some sort of chess match at the end of the day of where you place certain athletes in shows to hopefully have the most success. Obviously, I'm not in a position to deal with that yet, but I, have a top coach living right next door to me, and I see what she has to deal with. I think that it goes into strategy of just making sure that the amount of athletes that you have on your roster are taken care of, and getting to the goal of qualifying for the Olympia. At the end of the day, there's only so many shows that all of us can win. So pushing people strategically into shows that they know they could be or have a better chance of being successful with is one of those things. And the second thing to consider is, just like you said about me, in 2022 when I qualified, I had done 12 shows that year. I was really, really tired, probably not the best, health-wise, mentally, hormonally, etc. If the athlete is pushing so hard, I really truly believe that the athlete and coach that have the best success are when to push and knowing when to pull back. There's always a time where you can pull back, take 4-6 weeks off, do a little bit of a diet break, get the athlete back on track, and then, push again. There's a lot that goes into that though. I know for Jamie and we come up with a strategy and a game plan. If she tells me, no, you're not doing the show, it's because one of my other athletes needs to get qualified, or maybe it just doesn't make sense for me based on the time of year or the last show that I qualified at. At that level, your coach should almost be like a manager for you and hoping to make the best decisions for you, for your career. And then for us on Fit Body Fusion, our team, we want all of our girls to get there. So it's kind of complicated, honestly,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's a one size fits all answer. I know, I can only speak for Fit Body Fusion. Like, we just want to make sure that we get all of our girls there as best as we can in the most healthiest way. And we just try to strategize that as best as we can.
All right. So you guys, you and Sean have been great. We're talking about fit model and how you guys are going to grow sport. I honestly think you two are great ambassadors, but do you think bikini's becoming either too intense, like to compete at as a pro level, or do you feel like it's kind of getting too muscular to where it's not really attainable, and that's why fit model was created?
I love Bikini and where it's at right now. I am a true fan of, just like, training hard, muscle, etc. And something else that people don't really realize until they meet us in person is that when we're posed, we look like we have a lot more muscle than we actually do. How many times me and Amy, we've been together and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys are like so tiny. And I'm like, yeah, we're just tiny humans that know how to pose it. I think the fit model division is going to be a really great stepping stone for a few reasons. Number one, the thing that we're hearing as coaches right now is that numbers are down in the NPC for two reasons. Number one, they feel like the bikini criteria is unattainable to them at the moment, and you're thinking about somebody that's, 18 to 23 years old. They're, kind of lifting, not really seriously, and they kind of want to start competing. Well, they look at, of course, pros or, top girls that are at the national level. And I can see how that could be daunting. You're thinking about the amount of time that you're going to have to take to get to that level of muscle. The second thing that we're hearing that people say is financially, they can't afford it. Competing is very expensive. It is an expensive sport. So I think the fit model division bridges those two gaps. It allows the ability for someone that is curious about competing to step on stage and not have to do 1 to 2 years of building into a physique, and they're not even sure if they're going to love it. So it allows them to get on stage, see if they're going to like it, and it's a little bit more cost effective. The suit doesn't have bling on it, so $1,000 suit now goes to $175. So they're not spending a ton of money as well to see if they like this competing thing or this division. I think that there's going to be one or two sides of the athlete that competes in fit model. Number one, they love the look. They want to stay in fit model. They want to go that route. It's also really good for these, pageant girls, the ones that are leaving pageantry, swimsuit models, etc. They can go right into that division and still kind of carry that physique that they love and still compete. or it's going to be an athlete that just wants to step on stage, see if they like it. They don't necessarily love the fit model look, but then it will allow them buy-in to be able to take a 1 to 2 year off season to grow into bikini. And that's what I'm starting to hear with either some girls on my roster or new consults that I'm getting. So I'm hoping that, number one, it brings more people into the sport. And number two, we get our numbers up. Numbers have been, down in the NPC over the last couple of years. I don't think bodybuilding is going anywhere, but I certainly want to see more people experience it, especially from the mental side of it. How many people have you spoken to when they say bodybuilding changed my life? Bodybuilding helped me tremendously. Well, there's so many people still out there that need that help, and especially in a younger generation that doesn't have financial means. So I hope that fit model division really just starts to curb some of those, things that we're seeing and just gets more eyes on the sport.
Yeah, I still think bikini is a great entry-level division. It's why I like it a lot, because when it first started, I was a freshman when bikini started in 2009. They had the first Olympia in 2010. I'll be honest, I didn't like it at all because of it, because they used to like pose like that. Like someone just snapped your back. We were in physical therapy, so like God, it looks so uncomfortable. I didn't like. They looked like the Victoria's Secret model look. That was a look when people used to like see athletes and like, ew, sweat. I don't like that. Like it's too much. Like that's not at all. And then we start to see Ashley, and this is what got me into it. It actually got me into liking bikini, because when she won, she didn't expect to win at all, and she held the trophy and she's like looking left. She's looking right, and she's like, I don't know what to do. And she had the thumbs up. I have that picture. I told her I'd never forget that. That was how I got into that. That's how I got in. Like, and I'm watching, like, does she not realize she just won?
Yeah.
And then she defended it the next year. And it made it more interesting when you had those stars and you had those people to bring it up. And the rivalry obviously with Ashley and Janet, Angelica, one of the biggest names.
Best of all time. Yeah. Yep.
And I think those people can grow it. So I said this to Sean. I think right now this division needs a person to draw eyes to the division. We don't know who it is right now. It's like Emily, it's Angie, and now it's like, well, someone could come out of the blue. Someone could be that person in nationals, North Americans, USA's. We don't know. Yeah. But until I feel like it starts to get more people into it and we have a good top 5 at a national level show, then we'll start to see where it goes to. But I think it's great for starting out. And speaking to Becky, I feel like if someone is outgrowing it, they'll go into bikini. And I think bikini is still going to be popular. And I don't think Fit Model will take over for one reason. Because when you say that there's a limit for how much muscle's allowed, and you can't be having tie-ins, you can't have cap delts, your body's going to grow. So when you limit yourself and you say this is how much you have or allowed, it can't take over. Kind of like how some people would say classic would take over open. When you have a weight cap and you have a limit, it can't take over.
Correct.
As popular as one division may be, it's not. I still think bikini is going to be the popular division because that's what drawn to. Because a lot of people, like I said, they want to look like you. They want to look like something that I like to go into the gym and train. And yes, I have a limit, but I want to enjoy training.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I have athletes that I thought would be good for Fit Model, and I brought it up to them, and they're like, I just don't like that look. I'd rather keep building for bikini. I'm like, great. And that's the thing to consider too, is stage is one day for 30 seconds, or, if you're pro, great, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, whatever the case may be. What body do you want to live in 364 days out of the year? And also, how do you want to train, right? We, in the bikini division, have a little bit of a box on us. I haven't done squatting or knee flexion extension exercises since the second year I started competing because I can't grow my quads. I have to, focus on growing my glutes. Some people don't want to do that type of training. They don't want to feel limited. So they go into things like wellness or figure or something of that nature. So consider that, when you're thinking of your options, what body do I want to live in? How do I want to train? There's so much more to stage day. You really have to love what you're doing. So when I was bringing this up to my athletes, the few of them that I thought, might want to consider Fit Model, they were like, no, I just really want to continue to build for bikini. So that's the thing, is I agree with you. Bikini's not going to go anywhere. It's truly going to be like an entry level or somebody that is seeking that desired look of the Fit Model division. And then they're going to make a home there. I have someone else that I have in mind too, a client, and she's like, I just don't love to train hard. Like, I just want to go into the gym and, not really progressive overload and just kind of keep the tone that I have. Someone like that is great for Fib model. They're not really trying to grow. They're just trying to stay toned. Great. Go into Fib model division. So it really just truly depends. And I think it's really exciting. It's also a brand new division. So it's going to take a little, bit of time to, just like you said, get that face and then truly see what they're picking and what that standard is going to kind of shape into. The last time we had this was with wellness, but wellness was already pretty developed overseas and we kind of knew what it was. This is something brand new. So it is more exciting in that way. And just like Sean and I have talked about on Behind the Bikini, it also has that component of the model, the stage presence. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the girls show up with at the national level, and kind of what those presentations look like. And I think that we're going to not really know for sure until 6 to 8 months in the year, a little bit more athletes on stage. Obviously we're following the first 2-3 girls, that are getting all the overalls and whatnot, but there's going to be a lot more athletes coming out the gate later on in the year.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that. I do plan on going to the Warrior Classic in person. That's not too far from where I live.
Sweet.
Just to see how these shows go. Because like I said, I also studied before I say anything. Before I post anything, I kind of like, I assess the physiques. I see, okay, someone was like, oh, 8th place should have been higher. I'm like, okay, where do you think 8th should have been? 3rd. I'm like, well, here's 3rd. Here's 8th. 4, 5, 6, 7. They had something that 8th doesn't. So one thing I like about you the most is you're a student of the game. You attend the shows, you're observing, you see these, NPC shows, even the national level shows, you see what gets awarded. And that really helps you get your feedback and what you see get awarded on the pro level. Is that something you continue to learn, even continuing education as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would contribute a lot of coaching and success in coaching right now, especially in the bikini division. Obviously, there's education involved in science and things like that, but the eye is so needed for the bikini division, and that's something that Jamie really does have. It's her eye. She knows exactly what kind of look to bring. Showing up at the shows as a bikini coach, if you want to be, a top coach or turning pros, like, you have to be at these shows. Bikini is a moving target all of the time. It really does depend on who's showing up that day and who's standing next to you. I've learned so much from sitting in the audience at pro shows, at amateur shows, and it's to keep developing my eye. And each year it's a little bit different. It depends on the girls that are showing up. I don't know how coaches do it who don't show up to shows. It's absolutely incredible. I don't feel like I would have progressed the way I have as a coach as fast as I did if I wasn't showing up. The first year that I decided to, give bodybuilding coaching a try, it was never on my radar. I always said, I'm not going to be a bodybuilding coach. I'm not going to be a body. And then it fell into my lap. That first year, I invested a ton of money of just showing up to shows because I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing and that I was studying, and that I take coaching very seriously. I take each human life on my roster just as that. I have to lay down my head at night knowing that my athletes are healthy, they're happy, and I'm giving them what I know I can. So I feel very confident with the amount of travel that I do, that I have a really good understanding of what the judges are looking for. I talk to judges after shows if I'm not quite sure why they made the choice that they did. And it allows a really open conversation to be able to understand, like, this is why we chose that. I was like, okay, maybe I haven't thought about, or sometimes I walk away and I still disagree, and that's okay. But I love that open dialogue that I'm able to have with them. Because it continues to sharpen my eye and get even better.
Even if it's not your athlete, you would ask judges after like, for instance, I was at North Americans, and the girl that took 2nd in the class to the girl that won the overall, I was really impressed with her, and I think she's going to be a great pro. I would look at someone in that class, like, for instance, even the Olympia amateur, the overall winner, I think the girl that got 3rd, I was like, I kind of saw what she had, and then with the overall winner, with the person that won the class, I would look at class winners and then go, okay, where do they see they're going? So even if that's not your athlete at the amateur, you would ask the judges, and they're open to that.
Absolutely. There's been so many times where I go up to Sandy after the show and I'm like, I don't get it. Can you explain it to me? And it's not my athlete, but I just want to know just like you're saying, like in an overall, like, why did you pick that athlete? If like, I was like, wow, that second or third place girl, like she was amazing. And I just don't see it. I don't know, what they saw instead. That's going to be my number one question when I go up and, ask Sandy. Got to get my athletes feedback, and then I'm going to stay and wait and let the other girls get, and then I'm going to wait for her and be like, hey, can we talk about the overall? What did you see? What did I not? And there's been some times where she points it out to me. I'm like, oh, okay, got it. Learning moment. Or sometimes I'm just like, I don't really see that. And that's okay. I'm not a judge, but I'm just trying to learn. But yeah, asking questions. Judges love questions. They love for you to stay after the show. They love to talk in person. If you ask any judge, they much rather you stay after a person and talk to them than send them an email. I used to be really, really scared to do that. I'm like, oh, I don't want to bother them. But, every time that I talk to a judge, it is such a great conversation, and they truly just want to see you keep showing up and improving and be helpful. And then they love when, I'm coming as a coach and I'm like, help, I want to learn. Like, I'm not trying to argue with you. I just want to understand what the decision was. They respect that a ton.
Yeah. And that's something that we always can learn from and continue to develop. And even me, even with exercise science degree, even with my experience level, I was always curious to ask that question, because I was like, okay, don't get them upset. They went through a long day. They were there for 12 hours. I remembered it was the day after the 23 Olympia in Orlando. I saw Tarek and kind of asked what was the difference between Jen and Maureen. Explained it very well, even the difference in wellness as well. And I would kind of look back and look at the little details. I would look back even at film, even if I had video, and go like, see their movement patterns, see what they're doing, and what if something was really off, like about them, then I would apply it. When I post those top 6, it's to show people, see the differences of how they place. It's not to say she won because she was better or this, that. It's just like, I would say maybe I would do this differently, change your suit, use code J, just like for toxic. That's me, like, everybody use code J.
Yep, J.
Now I don't run ads, but if I were, first form, use code J.
All the things.
You said you were spacey, right?
Exactly.
I just had to put that out there. Like,
I love it.
You can get a new suit. Like, if that's a different thing, just going to help your look, because you can't dictate lighting. It's just how your hair, your skin, your tan looks, and how your suit brings it all together can make this look way bright. I would suggest a color. I would never say they should wear this only. I would say, like, well, based on her hair, like for instance, for you, teal and like royal, I think is great on you. Purple was great on you too. Don't ever do pink. Don't ever do pink.
You'll never catch me in pink. And I came out in the purple, and everybody loved the purple look. But I think with Sasquatch, the background was purple.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, oh, that would be great. It matches. And now thinking back, I'm like, no, that's not the right move. Like, you're basically sinking into the background. So I would love to come out in the purple again. I was literally just having a conversation with someone the other day, and they're like, God, I would love for you to bring the purple out again. I'm like, I know, but the judges really have made a line in the sand that they love the teal. And I do too. Like, that's a thing at, the pro level too, is kind of once you find your look and what they like, it's okay to just keep showing up in the same look. If it's working, like, why change it? But we're women. We love to change handbags and our hair color and, things like that. So I think people, want to change their suit colors too. But if it's not broken, you don't have to use it.
Exactly. So after this Arnold, is it just taking the whole year off just for the Olympia, or do you plan to do other shows or try to get an early qualification after, I think it's September kind of months?
I do have a contract signed for another show after the Arnold. So I am going to be doing the Pittsburgh for sure this year. Yes, that is already signed. I think I'm announcing it. This is the first time anybody's hearing that. And then I do want to do probably one more show before shutting it down. I love qualifying early. So I would love to come out a little bit before the Olympia and try to snag an early qualification. I do have a breast augmentation surgery scheduled in October, right after the Olympia, just to get I have 2 ripped implants on both sides. So I'm definitely addressing that this year. So in order to get an early qualification, to be able to kind of rest and know that I have it for 2026 would be amazing. So that is my goals for this year. So doing the Arnold, doing the Pittsburgh, probably one more show, shutting it down until the Olympia, coming out a little bit early, try to snag an early qualification, and then get ready for surgery and resting the rest of the year from there.
All right. Hey, that's great. And listen, unfortunately, I'm not going to be at the Arnold, but I'm going to watch the live stream for it. So I'm going to be tuning in, covering it.
Perfect.
I'm definitely going to cover the Japan show and preview that and recap that. I wish you all the best at Arnold. I'm definitely going to be in Pittsburgh. I have everything booked out. I got good seats for that. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there and seeing you in person as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And I wanted to say too, before we sign off, like, I know you do not get enough credit. Like, all of us as pros really appreciate you and all of the time and attention that you give to the bikini division. You know, it's so hard to find people that, you know, really truly know all about the women's divisions. And I feel like you do an extremely good job. So we really appreciate it. We appreciate you. And thank you for everything that you do on your platform.
I really appreciate it, Jordan. Anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, of course. Well, all of my sponsors, that Coach A, Toxic Angel Bikinis, Mega Fit Meals, First Form, Premier Alternative Medicine, obviously my team Fit Body Fusion, to my coaches, Jamie and Greg, and obviously my husband and my trainer, Drew. Obviously, I would not be here without you guys. I also want to shout out my content creator, Nikki Chase Gregorio. She is absolutely amazing, and she is responsible for all of the content that you guys have been seeing on my platform and my Arnold series. Could not do that without her. And obviously just my team and my fans. You know, everything I do, I try to do for you guys and just keep leading by example. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do that.
Guys, if you've not been following Jordan, I'm going to show you her YouTube channel.
It's pretty cool. It's a good one.
Jordan Brannon 8118, or Jordan, you can just find her at Jordan Brannon. So Road to the Arnold. She has a series going on.
Yeah.
Are you going to continue with this throughout the season as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of people asking that. And yes, we just had a meeting last week. We are going to keep the vlogs going in the off season. And then we're going to be doing, you know, into shows, the series, you know, just like this one, you know, one YouTube a week. But yes, we're definitely going to keep the content coming. It has been highly requested and I love it. So we're going to keep investing.
I wish girls were doing this more, like just showing themselves and just being them, like you're being you. One thing I'm sorry to take too much of your time. I'm sorry. But one thing I really liked was when Phoebe started in 2018. That's how I discovered her. I was like, oh, I stopped to feel like, go back. Her voice is British. I'm like, oh, she's from the UK. And I was like, that's great. Like, she kept putting herself out there. And it's like, when you hear her talk, it's like, it's relatable. And people love that when you share. I wish girls were doing that more, even the top girls as well. But I'm happy that you're doing it and you're making the best of it. So shout out to your videographer. And she's doing a great job. And listen, keep up the great work. I look forward to having you on possibly again. And even.
Absolutely. Anytime. Yeah. I'd love to.
Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.